my first step ever podcast, and I am Ishani Nigam, your host and producer of the podcast. This podcast is made for all the disruptors around the globe who know that they are made for something, for that one thing, but fear of embarrassment, fear of rejection, the fear of fear itself holds us back at some point in time. But hey, those are the only milestones that if we cross, we are there to take our first steps. So, welcome on this journey with me where I interview people from across the globe so that they can share their story, their challenges, and you know that even you can surpass yours. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome on my first step ever. This is a podcast where I am extremely and always happy to welcome successful people in whichever way they define the success as, and they have achieved that goal, that success. But what really goes behind making their life successful or achieving those goals is something very important, which is their conviction and their belief and their never giving up attitude. Now that looks different for everyone in their journey, and that is why the aim is to uncover and discover different journeys, different stories from all walks of life. But this one on the podcast is going to be extremely different because I'm going to be interviewing someone who has been there in the industry and chosen the path of really making the difference by choosing to be in the position of serving the people of the country that she is in and the state that she is in. So I will be taking you through a bit more in detail of her background. But before that, let's quickly join your hands in welcoming Heidi Gillermoro all the way from South Australia. Hi, Heidi. Welcome on my first step ever.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on this podcast, and I must say that as much as I love your name, Heidi, it's been an exciting journey for me to even learn how I pronounce your last name, as we were just doing it a few.
My maiden name was actually Black, like the colour, which is much easier than Girolamo, but Heidi is a lot easier to pronounce than Girolamo, that's for sure.
So let me give a sneak peek about you to our listeners today. Heidi serves in the South Australian Liberal team as Shadow Minister for Finance and Tax Reform, Communities, Disabilities, and Youth and the Circular Economy. Entering Parliament in August 2021, Heidi was elevated to the Shadow Cabinet in April 2022. Wow. Now that is a quick promotion, or I would say, being elevated. That shows that your conviction, your hard work, and that what you were bringing to the table was really making sense. So Heidi has a professional background as a chartered accountant and small business owner. She's also a mother of two. Heidi values the importance of small government, economic growth, looking after our regions and their agriculture sectors, as well as supporting small businesses to succeed. Heidi's professional experience working for Deloitte with some of South Australia's largest corporate organization gives her a detailed understanding of the Adelaide market, the future of direction of South Australia. So if any one of you over there has been really wondering, should I be, stepping into a government role, a policy making role, or maybe if it's not really a defined role but you really want to make a difference, this is a story that you can seek some inspiration from. And most importantly, what really goes behind a person's mind who is ready to take such responsibilities of to making a change. So Heidi has also been on the board of KidSafe, a charity focused on accident and injury prevention for children, from June 2014 to August 2021. Heidi has a keen interest in focusing on early intervention services because of the importance of prevention across health, education, and child protection. Now we can see that she has some strong values ingrained over there, and she has been practicing that long before she was in the position that she is in today. So it's going to be exciting to understand that how it all stemmed out for Heidi. So Heidi, my first question is to you is, please take us back in your childhood days. I would really love to know that what kind of surroundings were you, growing up in, and what was the mindset of people around you?
Well, thank you, and thank you for that introduction. It has been quite a journey going into politics, and I've had an interest in politics for as long as I can remember. I was very lucky to grow up with two wonderful parents Peter and Julie Black, and my sister Katie, and we grew up in a very strong Liberal family, very much focused on those liberal values and all the rest. But also, my parents were very involved in the Liberal Party back in the 70s, and I grew up hearing stories about the Liberal Party during those days, with very close family friends around me, who, including former Premier Steele Hall, who sadly passed away about a month ago, and his wife Joan Hall had a significant impact on my life and my interest in politics. Many families would sit around the table talking about sport or different other fishing or things like that. My family would sit around the table discussing politics, and very lucky to have had my parents having a very strong interest in politics and contributing back, but also having very close family friends around me who have been wonderful mentors and friends who really kind of shaped my interest in politics. I can remember from even as young as 8 and 9 being there reading the paper with my dad and discussing politics. I can't remember an election where we weren't heavily involved in either going along with my parents on election day or now my parents coming and helping me on election day. So it has been it's been a really interesting pathway, and something that I really have enjoyed. Joined the Liberal Party when I was 16, expressing a really strong interest in politics, and the person who encouraged me to join was Ben Hall, who's Joan and Steele's son. At the age of 16, I joined the Liberal Party, and I haven't looked back. So it's been a really interesting journey. I've always sort of had that interest in politics, and has really been an area where I've got interest in politics, but also importantly being able to contribute to the community and being able to have that mindset of wanting to be able to see South Australia succeed, especially young people. As a parent, I'm very passionate about young people having the right pathway in life as well.
It is quite a in-depth understanding that I can get from your journey while you were growing up, Heidi. Because I feel when we are growing up and till the age of 6 or maybe even 8, that is the formative years of someone who's growing up. What we hear while we growing up, what we see, the values, how our parents really lead by action, lead by example, that really sets our mindset of what the world is like or what things are really as we grow up. So it's very interesting to know that you already had that foundation set for yourself, and but as an individual you also had that interest, that you grasp that, oh, this is something that I'm interested about. You were always thinking about those particular topics. You were involved in the discussion, as you mentioned. I mean, growing up, being 8 or 9 or 7, reading the newspaper, that is a very different I think kind of situation for a lot of people, because at that age a lot of kids are growing up in a different environment. They're just kind of getting to know, they like playing, they like exploring the world. But I think you were in a very different zone already, kind of discussing, consuming the content that really helped shape who you are today. And you were very focused, from what I could understand, from the very beginning. Because often it happens that, yes, for example, your parents are an entrepreneur and they are talking about that all the time, but maybe, well, while you are growing up, you have certain kind of different interests. Maybe you are someone very creative, you want to be an artist. So it's good to see that you wanted to be in the same direction that your parents, they're leaving the legacy. And it is such a sweet thing that you mentioned, you helped your parents during the election time, and now they are there while you're going for the election. It's like coming full circle. So from there, Heidi, I am extremely interested to know about your mindset as a person when you were growing up. Because if there is someone else who's listening to us today around the globe and they are interested in voicing their opinion about something, or whether, irrespective whether they sit in a community, sit in a position of authority or not, while you were growing up, you said you joined the Liberal Party at the age of 16, but just before that, uh, what what was going in your mind in terms of, because that is a very fragile age. We do have a lot of self doubt, we do have a lot of fear about what are people going to think about that. It could be different in your case. So how was that for you? And if there was any sort of challenges that you were facing back then, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I felt always very supported within the Liberal Party to get involved, and I guess my involvement and my parents' involvement was purely on a voluntary capacity for a very long time as dedicated members of the party. And I think that that gave me a really good insight, and it became, I guess, an area of interest and hobby and all the rest. And I think it was an important decision, a bit of a crossroad for me, was deciding never to work in politics until I became a member of parliament. So I worked outside of politics quite deliberately because I think it's important to have a different background and to bring something to the table. And for me, that was around the business side of things. So working as an accountant, I've been a part owner in two cafes as well, and having that different perspective, I think that's been really invaluable. And all the while still having that really strong involvement within politics and watching others and learning from others who are involved. I think that that really helps from a mindset perspective. I've always been quite a focused person, and being able to have that work ethic as well, which I think probably comes from my parents as well, knowing that, if I get opportunities pop up, just putting my hand up and giving things a go. And I did that both within my professional career at Deloitte, but also within the Liberal Party as well, different opportunities, whether that be to be a branch president or to run for vice president of the party. Just being able to put my hand up for things, I think, really just gives you a different insight to things and to be able to give things a go. And that's something I've really always enjoyed. My mum is worked in the not-for-profit space for nearly 40 years, and I think she was a great example for me. Her most recent role was as CEO of Ronald McDonald House before she retired, as well as other organisations. And I think that that sense of community and was a really important factor for me as well. So I've always, partly why I got involved in KidSafe as well on the board, being able to help organisations succeed. And I think sometimes government gets very involved in different areas, but I think the not-for-profit sector and the private sector often do things very well. And I think it was great being able to get experience in both of those areas before coming into politics.
Wow, Heidi, I really love to hear your thoughts on, how things really work in terms of, when someone is in politics and what a person as an individual, what they're actually thinking, what are the associations, what are their motivations, what they really want to do for, for the people, or for the community that they are part of. So I think something that you've mentioned that really caught my interest is that although you did join the Liberal Party at the age of 16, and it was mostly for a large period, you mentioned, on a voluntary basis, and you very specifically wanted to kind of work outside that and gain some, hands-on experience, if that's the right word, if I can use, so please take us through that journey of yours, when you started working in Deloitte, or even, in different sectors. You had a very focused mindset than why you're doing that. How did that journey begin for you, and what were any challenges if you faced in the corporate sector, or in the NGO, or in your working for those many years in that part of your life?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, it was a bit of a journey. I think I started as a graduate at Deloitte, so it was just a natural progression. I guess I finished my commerce degree, went into Deloitte, and did my study to become a chartered accountant, all while having that involvement in the Liberal Party as well. And I think it was a good stepping stone. I think the structure of an organisation like Deloitte was invaluable for me, being able to I guess, get to know different organisations, managing staff, lots of different skill set that I think has really been very beneficial for me as a member of parliament. But also being able to, I guess, work in that team environment. I think that that's something I've always really enjoyed. I'm not one that could have sat at a computer day in, day out. Like, even though accounting did involve a lot of that, there was still a big element where you're working collaboratively as a group, helping clients, helping the team. That side of things is something that I really enjoyed, and I think it just created a good structure and pathway for me, and something that I really valued, and something that I would definitely, I guess, recommend for people who are studying. That the support of a big firm was very beneficial for me. Not for everyone. The hours work could be quite massive and all the rest, but I think that's made it easier to adjust to the life of a politician as well, because I'm used to doing multiple different tasks in a day, not just doing one thing at a time, but being able to juggle multiple things. I think that's what was beneficial for me, going from the corporate sector into politics, and being able to have that mindset that this is something I really want to do. And I think, when I set my mind on things, I make sure that I try and do them to the best quality that I can do. I also quite conscious, I guess it was quite consciously decided that I didn't want to go into politics until I had my family as well. So my children were both at school by the time I went into politics, and I think that's worked out very well. It doesn't, timing can be, it just depends on
Yes.
timing for individuals. But for me personally, having my children were 5 and 7 when I went into politics, so already both at school. That's been really beneficial, and having the support of my husband and my parents and my in-laws, I think I couldn't do it without them as well. So having that circle around you is really important.
I think something that you mentioned is so correct. What you just mentioned, the circle, the people around you, the support that you get from them is extremely important. One thing that I find in your journey is that you have been super focused, super clear, and you've planned it out quite well in advance. But having said that, it is not easy to always stick to the plan and keep going. Although that you have fulfilled your plans, you have the goals that you had, that by the age of that mandatory, that in your head you decided that no, first I want to get some hands-on experience. I would first get married, give the time to my children, because a certain number of hours, because what the role demands, it demands, and you have to be loyal to it. So it's very nice that even you always knew that what your calling is, and you kept you know in touch with that in some capacity. But you did come back to it when you felt the time was right for you, and you had gained that experience, and you had gained that real knowledge of what is out there, what is working, what's not working, and you bringing that back to where it is really required. I really appreciate this, and I think this is a takeaway or highlight that I would like our listeners to kind of maybe pause, reflect on today, that if there is something that you really like, and you can sort of plan out things, what really is going to be helpful at certain stage of your life. And if you're not clear about something, it is always best to go with the flow of what really you like something, or you're inclined towards something, that always helps you take or shape your life in the direction that you are probably meant to go and be at. So thank you so much, Heidi, for taking us through your childhood days, growing up in the environment, and yet showing us that how focused and how determined a person that you are. And you did take up all the responsibilities of your own decisions that you had gone through, because it all sounds easy in hindsight then when we talk about it. But I'm sure working in a corporate, having that long hours even over there, and purposely understand what to want to understand that what happens at the ground level is such a great way of going ahead. And I think to each their own, as you mentioned, which is absolutely interesting. From here on, I just wanted to kind of ask something, for anyone who's listening to us today, if they are facing some challenges on the journey of their own goals. They know where they are going, they are already there, but they're stuck somewhere. You have been similar situation on your own journey in the past. What has been the top three things that has really helped you always go past those challenges?
Yeah, and I guess I should say that there's been obviously roadblocks along the way. It's just that persistence to kind of keep on going, and also having time to reflect, and having time to plan what your next steps are going to be, and whether that be in work or study, because sometimes you can get into the grind of just doing things rather than knowing why you're doing things. And I think as your time gets more scarce, especially having children and jobs and everything else, and different, last year I was doing some study as well, that, or a course that really having that time to work out where can I get most bang for my buck, and not necessarily, I have a habit of saying yes to everything, but being able to say no, this is why I'm doing this, but unfortunately I won't be able to do that at this time. Being able to prioritize, I think, is a huge thing as well, and making sure that you kind of have those goals and those ways forward as well. And it won't happen straight away as well. Like, I was a member of the Liberal Party for 20 years before I became a member of Parliament. So it's a long journey, but I think those sorts of journeys are important, and being able to just if things don't happen straight away. So I didn't get the spot on the Liberal Party ticket that I necessarily wanted the first time round, but then a casual vacancy came up, and I was next in. I was able to get that spot. So most people in politics don't get it first time round, and I was definitely one of those people. But I think persistence is definitely the key within this game as well.
Wow, this is so good to hear, Heidi. Your top three things that you have mentioned is all about, kind of being really persistent, and also prioritizing. I think that one piece of advice is a gold, I would really say, that we get caught up in so many things down the line in the 5 years, 10 years, that we actually forget that how we set out at the very beginning, that what the purpose was and why we are doing something. So it's very important to prioritize, reset certain things, and most importantly, that not giving up. It is such an incredible thing, Heidi, that you have been persistently there for 20 years, and and it really shows that you want to be where you are, you want to do what you're doing. 20 long years still going on and trying to be there, because you have that conviction that you have got what it takes to be there, and that you can definitely make a difference. So, and I think that relate well in any profession that anyone is, even if it takes you uh, it maybe 10 years, 15 years to be where you want in the kind of profession that you want to be. If you really believe that you are made for it and you have gotten that for you, I think Heidi has shown us a very interesting way forward, which is to never give up and keep going on. So, Heidi, thank you so much for being on this podcast, on my first step ever. I would love to get into even more detailed chat with you, but I know that we have really important stuff to get done. So,
Opportunity, I really appreciate it, and always happy to chat again in the future.
wow, that's amazing. Before we let you go, I want to quickly ask you one thing. Today's generation, Gen Z, I think they are very much people who live by their values. They want to make a difference. They are also, very opinionated, which is a good thing, that they are not afraid to keep their opinions forward. What do you want to say to any Gen Z or anyone actually who is really wanting to be in the profession in that you are in?
I guess just being able to have that persistence, and I think the value side of things, that's very important to know what you stand for. If you have an interest in politics, just to get involved, whatever party that might be, whichever country or location that might be, that just putting your hand up and getting involved is probably the first step. A lot of people tend to have really strong opinions, but sort of keeping them to themselves. Whereas I think it's great if people do have an interest, that they put their hand up and give things a go.
Thank you so much, Heidi. And I would like to say that it is by way of someone's action that you come to know that what they really, if they really, stand by what they preach. And I can really say that hands down for Heidi, because she did say yes to this particular chat with me. Because it's going out to a lot of people, the youth out there, and anyone who's listening to us today, to let us speak into her world, to know that what it really takes to be where she is. And for anyone in the world who is interested in this area, or who would love to be a person who want to build the conviction to do what they want to do and take the first step, because that is the hardest. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being on my first step ever. And as I always request my guest speakers to leave our listeners with a quote or a saying that you really resonate with.
That's really good. So I guess like from Stillhall's funeral, I think the quote that he led by was that when you're doing things, you've just got to do it. So just giving things a go and things like that. So I think from my perspective, I always set my mind on things and just give things a go and just do it.
Amazing. If you have set your mind on things and you want to do it, then just do it, because there's no other way for getting things done. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being on my first step ever. And to all my listeners out there, as I always say, start believing in yourself and keep believing in yourself. And if you love to know a little bit more about Heidi, I'm going to leave a bit about her on the show notes. So do follow her. And for everyone out there, this is your life. Take that courageous step, take that action today, and build conviction in yourself. So keep tuning into my first ever podcast. Thank you so much. Please do give ratings and please do write your comments. And you can directly reach out to me on my first step ever _IN. That's my Instagram handle. A little about myself. I have always loved performing on stage, acting, speaking, and just emoting myself. So I use these mediums different ways so that I can connect with people, help them, empower them, infotain them, which is to inform them and entertain them. If you would like to collaborate for any opportunities, more than welcome to connect with me on my Instagram handle. Thank you.